Okay, we are live. We are live. We are live. We are reading Project 2025. I probably shouldn't sing. That's probably not the best thing, right? Right? That's not what that's supposed to be about. So, we got through a lot of stuff yesterday. I was very excited that we got through 2 separate sections. All of that has been uploaded to my YouTube. So, everything up until this point has now been uploaded to my YouTube as far as just reading it. Summaries are going to take time, but that's okay because I want to make sure that we keep this momentum. After watching last night, that was crazy. I was blown away with DNC, and that was the first night. It was just the first night. Watching the GOP and MAGA lose their minds was hilarious because they're like, oh yeah, she's eating Doritos. Like, somehow that's like, what? But anyway, for those of you who are just joining, I read Project 2025 out loud. I had started this a couple of weeks ago, and we are currently now on, we just finished part of section 9. So, for those of us who are joining, I read Project 2025 live. I read it here on TikTok, and I'm also simultaneously live. Oh, thank you for the hat right off the bat. This is going to be a phenomenal read. Thank you, Halo. You guys should follow Halo. Amazing. Loving, caring, compassionate. Exactly the kind of humans we all need. And besides, got a healer. So, even better. I read this out loud here. Read it on TikTok live, same time, and then later on I upload this to my YouTube channel. So if you miss a live, totally fine. I put it in my playlist as like the summaries, but then you can also go to my YouTube, which is in my bio. So last night, wow, Mallory McMowry, when she came out, when she was like, this is Project 2025 and we're gonna talk about it, and I'm like, yes she did. Yes, she did. And yes, we are. We're going to keep talking about it. We're going to keep talking about it and talking about it and talking about it and talking about it until you realize that we need to know exactly what's in it. Now, for those of you who are new, this is very boring. A lot of it is jumbled jargon that whatever. But then there's going to be that little nugget. Like yesterday we talked about blah, 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 media agencies, blah, 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 blah. Cut funding for PBS and NPR because they're too leftist. They're too woke. Yesterday we talked about USAID, like not giving funds to people with the language of sexual reproductive health, abortion is healthcare, anything dealing with climate, anything dealing with gender identity. If that verbiage is in there, they want to deny people getting services based on that, even though they don't control the world, but when the world does need them, topics that everybody talks about should be able to be discussed. You shouldn't ban words. You know what I mean? So, yesterday we were talking with USAID. We got halfway through. We are on page 262 if you are following along. This section, we went through media agencies, straight on into the Agency for International Development. On 262, we are starting with streamlining procurement and localizing a partner base for USAID. USAID is a grant-making and contracting agency that disperses billions of dollars of federal funding in developing countries through implementing partners such as UN agencies, international NGOs, for-profit companies, and local non-government entities. In rare instances, such as in Jordan and Ukraine, the agency provides direct budget support to finance the operations of host country governments. USAID far more often counts on expensive and ineffective large contracts and grants to carry out its programs. It justifies these practices based on the speed of a lower administrative burden on its institutional capacity. Partnering and procurement reform was a pillar of the Trump administration's effort to secure better development results, cut costs, and advance journey to self-reliance strategy of exiting countries from aid. In December 2018, USAID launched its first acquisition and assistance strategy to streamline procurement processes, to introduce innovation into its programming, and diversify its partner base away from large, expensive, and partisan implementers. The one thing you will notice about this, guys, is as they read, it is run-on sentence hell. If you are any kind of a grammar schmatzy like I am, they've literally not one time in this book used IT apostrophe S to show possession. It literally just goes like this, and then they'll use a semicolon randomly and a comma here, and an entire paragraph is going to be one line. So sometimes my reading sounds awful. I'm not going to lie, because I'm reading a lot of this for the first time just straight through, and it is single line. A lot of this is single line, single spacing kind of thing. Like, oh my God. But it's intentional. Say everything you want to say, and then this is tied to it. So that's what you'll hear from me. USAID so we talked about USAID with the contracts, partnering with. In December 2018, I lost my spot, I apologize. The strategy counted on local NGOs, including faith-based entities. Halo with the vote stickers. Halo with the vote stickers. Know what's up. Know what's up. We're getting our girl Kamala all the way there. But yeah, right there. So they want to move away from larger acquisitions to faith-based acquisitions. Faith-based. But whose faith are they going to rely on? Or whose faith are they going to allow? You know what I mean? They're going to tie religion to funding now. So not only can you not say words, not only can you not talk about science, not only can you not talk about climate, not only can you not talk about the LGBTQ community, now you want to tie it to faith-based. Wow. I mean, we knew it was bad, and it just gets worse. And it just gets worse. By the way, I am fully aware that MAGA comes in here and talks a whole bunch of shit on my page. Let them talk. Let them say whatever they want to say about anything on how I look, how I sound, who I am, what I am, because that's what they do. They bring all the Trump 2024 shit to my page every day, and I welcome it. Unlike maybe some other creators who may block it, I don't give a shit. Go ahead and say what you're going to say, because boo, you're going to bring the algorithm right back around, and more people are going to learn about Project 2025, and that just makes me happy. So say what you're going to say, do what you're going to do, insult who you're going to insult, but it's not going to be me, not going to bully me. I'm going to read this, and you're going to talk shit, and then it's going to make me happy. So say everything you need to say. It's totally fine with me. I don't need a safe space, unlike many MAGA. So I'm just saying. I got balls of steel. The strategy counted on local NGOs, including faith-based entities already on the ground, to provide the agency with less costly, more effective alternatives to aid grants. The strategy also prioritized global partnership with private sector, corporations, investors, private philanthropies, and the source of real capital investment, innovation, and efficiencies that can maximize the impacts of taxpayer dollars. Under the Biden administration, despite rhetoric to the contrary, the aid industrial complex has recaptured the agency and stifled further reforms. Page 263, 2025 Presidential Transition Project. The next conservative administration, they always give these little nuggets, should immediately implement language on key policies, topics as standards, provisions in all grants, cooperative agreements, and contracts. So immediately. These provisions should include language on implementing the policy on protecting life in foreign assistance, imposing conditions on funding to multilateral organizations, and increasing accountability and transparency. That is very important. So I'm going to read that. That's only 2 sentences, but it is 1 paragraph, because that's who we're dealing with. They just have run-on sentences for life. The next conservative administration should immediately implement language on key policy topics as standard provisions in all grants, cooperative agreements, and contracts. These provisions should include language on implementing the policy on protecting life in foreign assistance, imposing conditions on funding to multilateral organizations, and increasing accountability and transparency. Do as I say, don't do as I do kind of a thing. Do as I say, don't do as I do kind of a thing. To ensure that USAID exercises its existing authorities to streamline procurement processes, the next conservative administration should name a political appointee as the agency's senior procurement executive and director of agency's Office of the Assistance of Acquisitions, OAA, and in the Bureau of Management, M. So, we've talked about Schedule F. Schedule F is implementing yes men, is firing civilians and engineers and all that good stuff to put in yes men. That's what that is. Schedule F is all about that. This entire document, for the most part, is telling people what they can and can't do, but first and mostly installing people starting day one. Because Trump's just like, yeah, fucking give it to him. I don't give a shit. Oh, well, thank you for the roses. Is it Ashothun? I'm going to call you Ash. I'm going to call you Ash. Schedule F just says, even if you're not qualified, but you're a yes man to Trump, you'll get installed. And they are writing the book on how they're going to do that. And that should bother the absolute shit out of you. Because that's a dictatorship. That's not a Oh, Tina joined the team. Hello. Thank you, Tina. But that's what that means. They want to Schedule F people so that they have their way of who their staff is and their cabinet, but people who aren't even qualified, but they're yes men, take out the civilians who are already there, who do the job because they're knowledgeable and have been there, and that's what they do, and just keep doing it over and over and over again until you have an entire 3 branch of government that's just yes men. The head of the M/OAA is one of the most important positions at the USAID. Let's find out why. As the office is ground zero for controlling the disbursement of U.S. foreign aid. So they want somebody in place who can pull those purse strings. The White House should empower the administrator and his or her designees to make determinations concerning the scale and scope of awards and increase the transparency and accountability of subawards, which can escape public scrutiny and promote progressive policies during conservative administrations. USAID should use existing authority to use program funds to expand its roster of contracting agreement officers to accelerate the delivery of funds for disaster response to a more diverse collection of implementers. That is the only time you will ever hear that. That's crazy. Accomplishing the next conservative administration's policy goal at USAID will require that political appointees have knowledge of, responsibility for, and visibility into the design and awarding of grants, contracts, and cooperative agreements. The administration should restore the Senior Office of Accountability Review, the SOAR, or create a similar process to ensure that proposed programs above a certain dollar threshold in total estimate/total estimated amount cost receive a close review by policymakers in each bureau and office and for large awards in the agency's front office. One sentence. That was one sentence. This is why people don't want to read this, because it was just one. It was that one paragraph was one fucking sentence. Localization is a buzzword within USAID community, but correctly assumes more funding through local organizations produces better aid outcomes. Shifting from the giant U.S.-based implementation has proved difficult to achieve. However, given intense and internal bureaucratic resistance, opposition from the aid industrial complex, and foot-dragging from progressives who view NGOs, especially faith-based NGOs, prominent in Africa and Latin America, as obstacles to promoting abortion, gender radicalism, climate extremism, and other woke ideas. Halo with the lightning. Thank you for that. I appreciate you. Sorry if I'm not seeing these guys. Guys, remember, I want everybody to hear this. So like, comment, share, follow, subscribe, whatever you want to do. Gifts are never expected. They are always appreciated. And if I don't see them, I apologize. When I do see them, I will thank you. So thank you from the bottom of my heart. This allows me to do what I do. So I appreciate all of you. I just don't always see them, so I apologize for that. But again, we're talking about aid. And it says, okay, so they're trying to blame Africa and Latin American countries now as obstacles to promoting abortion, gender radicalism, climate extremism, and other woke ideas. The word woke is in here so many freaking times and should never even be in this kind of a document because it is ridiculous. Go woke. Yeah, stay awake. The President's Emergency Plan for AIDS Relief, PEPFAR, so PEPFAR, has shown that localization at scale is possible within short time span. Over the 4 years of the Trump administration, the multi-billion-dollar program increased the amount of funding dispersed to local entities from 25% to nearly 70% with positive overall results. This model should be replicated across all of U.S. aid. Yeah, and how do you plan on doing that? You're going to pay all your rich cronies first, so that'll be interesting. In addition, the next conservative administration should expand the use of the new partner initiative, the NPI, highlight, to every bureau and office, reset requirements for USAID's overseas missions, and craft and execute NPI action plans, and a mission minimum percentage of its portfolio must go to new, underutilized, and local partners. Crucial to the strategy will be increasing the use of open competition that lowers barriers to entry and a fixed amount award that carry less of a compliance burden, along with eliminating cost plus reimbursement contracts that favor large companies. Faith-based. Based on the faith that you agree with my faith, I'm going to agree to give you aid. You agree that climate change isn't real, I'm going to give you aid. You don't, suck it. That's what it's saying. Global health. Before advancing a new program, the agency should be required to assess existing local activities to avoid undercutting or duplicating them. At every opportunity, USAID should be built on existing local initiatives. The Global Health of the United States is the world's largest funder of global health initiatives. For more than 60 years, the American people have offered health assistance to the world and saved millions of lives. The U.S. Bureau for Global Health, GH, the world's second largest within USAID, oversees a multi-billion-dollar operation to support maternal and child health, voluntary family planning, PEPFAR, and President Malaria's Initiative, the PMI, both started under George W. Bush, and all other initiatives against other infectious and neglected tropical diseases. Effective use of these funds is essential to maximize the care for the world's neediest people. Oh, Lisa Beth with the roses. Thank you so much. I appreciate you. I apologize I didn't see it. Like I said, guys, if I don't see it, I am so sorry. I do appreciate them. I do see them, and when I can see you, I will absolutely thank you. So I appreciate that. Unfortunately, it says countries with strong health institutions and sound public practices responded quickly to and recovered more rapidly from COVID-19 pandemic. We were the number one in cases. We were the number one in deaths. And a lot of people will say a lot of people died from COVID under Biden because he was playing catch up from the catch-up artist. So this is hilarious to me that you're trying to delegate what people need and the diseases in the world and you need aid based on that when our own fucking president was telling us to drink bleach. So, I'm sorry. I will listen to this science, not Project 2025, because that is always an agenda. It should be called Projection 2025. Projection. It's always what they're going to do. It's always holding their whole ass. Unfortunately, by many, USAID-funded global health activities remain rooted in patterns that began decades ago and measure improvements in terms of inputs, money spent, instead of outcomes achieved. From the 50s to the 70s, the major recognized threats to human health were infectious diseases such as polio, smallpox, and USAID funded programs in a country, not with a country. So they're talking about vaccines now. So in the 50s and 60s, it was smallpox and polio. And guess what? Y'all got vaxxed. There wasn't, here you go. Unless there was some reason that you physically could not, because it would harm you, more harm than good, you were given it. Your parents took you, all of our parents took us, and we were vaccinated because we listened to the science, because it wasn't just America, it was the world. Maternal and children health, food, water, and sanitation programs were often intermittent. USAID consistently financed population control, contraception, and abortion as an essential to development. Yes, because it is. Most programs focused on one disease or condition but had little integration with other global health activities. Chronic diseases were ignored. Consequently, the next conservative administration, here we go, highlight, should focus on updating the Global Health Bureau's portfolio, emphasizing on a comprehensive approach to supporting women, children, and families, building host country institutional capacity, increasing awards to local and faith-based partners, expanding what occurred during Trump's administration with the NPI, and improving USAID's ability to coordinate with local partners. If you believe in my God, you will get aid. If you don't believe in my God, get fucked. That's what they're saying. Updating funding priorities. The Bureau should identify and eliminate outdated and ineffective concepts and focus on funding innovation. A rigorous review is necessary to ensure that current programs and funding streams avoid wasting taxpayer dollars and prioritize what is needed and what works. Okay, so here's how they plan on doing it. Focusing on holistic health care and support for women, children, and families. We're going holistic now? This will be fun. The continued high rate of maternal and infant mortality is persistent global tragedy. Contrary to current publicity, the problem is not solved by abortion. They literally think that we're just lining up to get abortions every day. I swear to God. And some of those, there wouldn't have been mother fatalities if you'd listened to doctors. I'm just saying. Contrary to current publicity, this problem is not solved by abortion. Families genuinely cherish children. You do? Families genuinely cherish children. The next leadership of the USAID must focus on attention on women and children's health, including unborn children, as well as health risks across lifespans, including childhood infections, cervical cancer, adolescent risk, and family stability by utilizing coordinated approach. What are you talking? Oh, thank you, Ginger, for the vote stick. I appreciate you. So they're saying, okay, we're gonna focus on families and children, but all these other diseases too, yada 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 yada. The Bureau should implement a request for application for resilient families that harvests collaborative funds from soiled programs and makes individuals and the family, not diseases or conditions, the true focus of intervention. Oh, Ginger, thanks for joining my team. I appreciate you guys. Increasing U.S. collaborations with faith-based organizations. Oh, thank you, Ginger, for the color. I appreciate you. So when they say FBOs, they're not FBIs. FBOs are faith-based organizations. They are talking about Christian faith. They are talking about what the United States conservative vision for Christian faith is. They're not talking about any other religions or how anybody else interprets Christianity or atheist, agnostic, Wiccan. They're not talking pagan. They're talking about none of that. They're talking about Christ-centered, how they view Christ-centered, which is always amazing to me because even as a Christian, I'm aware that Jesus was not born in fucking America. Okay? He was an olive-skinned man. Okay? But you can get aid if you agree with my God, my rules, my way. If you don't, again, sorry. The opposite of what Jesus would do, but sounding like this is what Jesus would want. Crazy. FBOs historically have been much more successful in outreach to remote and vulnerable populations based on trust built through decades of service. Why do you think that is? Read it again. FBOs historically have been much more successful in outreach to remote and vulnerable populations based on built-in trust through decades of service. When you have nothing and people with things come to you and start talking about a man in the sky and giving you a book, and all of a sudden you can eat again and you can have access to health care and you can have glasses and I don't know, you can get shoes. In vulnerable populations that don't know better, you're going to push your religion in there and give them more money because they're going to push your religion. That's self-explanatory. Like, how do you not see that? If I was in a country and I had no idea what Jesus was, no idea what God was, and here comes these saviors that look healthy and they're bringing things, of course I'm going to agree with them because I need the aid. Because without it, I would be gone. And they'll say that it's Christ-like and they'll tout that it's Christ-like, but then they'll say, oh, this is what we believe, but you cannot believe this. You cannot do this. You cannot. Anytime your religion tramples on somebody else's beliefs, that's not a good religion. I don't know if anybody needs to tell you that, but it's not. It's not. You don't get to just tell people that your religion's the best. It's what this country was founded on. Freedom of religion. It means all. It's inclusive. It doesn't just mean we're just Christ-centered. Granted, most of America is Christian, but not all. And that's where them tying funding, these FBOs, these faith-based organizations tying funding to USA that is foreign and then saying you can only have our money if you agree with our policies and our God is against what humanity is. Like, make it make sense. The value of cooperating with FBOs was demonstrated in October 2020 Evidence Summit on Religious Engagement. In sub-Saharan Africa, FBOs often provide more than 80% of health care, especially to the Saharan Africa. FBOs often provide more than 80% of health care, especially to the conditions. Jim Jones. Sub-Saharan Africa, FBOs often provided more than 80% of health care, especially to the extremely poor. In contrast, the Global Health Bureau historically has provided 85% of its funding to large U.S. NGOs with significant overhead costs, as a result of which only 20% to 30% of funding levels people in need. Leveraging the strength and experience of presidential initiatives. Millions of people are alive today because of the American people's investment in PEPFAR and PMI. The training, laboratory, clinical intervention, health education, data collection, and organizational platforms of these programs became the bedrock for responding to the COVID pandemic. It is time for these programs to become part of an integrated, strong, and sustainable network of healthcare in public and developing countries. A smooth transition to the national ownership of funding, however, will still require better coordination of USAID's own stovepipe programs within PEPFAR and PMI. We were the worst at COVID. And now we're telling other countries how to live. Bitch. Strengthening collection of the use of data. Good decisions are based on accurate data. For decades, global health programs have relied mostly on statistical modeling rather than actual data or survey data, the weakest type. Poor data quality undermines both evaluation and improvement of desired outcomes achieved by our global health programs. The Trump administration implemented updates to PEPFAR's system for the collection and reporting of data to increase transparency and hold funded partners and overseas missions accountable. The next conservative administration should apply these reforms to all of USAID's global health programs. Do as I say, don't do as I do. Strengthen the private sector engagement. The Bureau's Center for Innovation and Impact, CII, should be empowered to expand networks for private and faith-based health organizations that can develop projects using development impact bonds, capital funds, innovative technologies, including with the Millennium Challenge Corporation and the new U.S. International Development Finance Corporation. More flexible and agile CII funding will spur innovation within the Bureau and help to enhance countries' self-reliance in the provisions of healthcare. Improving Bureau hiring, staffing, and recruitment practices. This is where we're going to see more Schedule F. More Schedule F. The Global Health Bureau should address its own management challenges by modifying the high ratio of contractors. See, they're trying to take away positions. To direct hires, holding career leadership accountable for effective management and building more flexibility in emergency responses. Bureau personnel suffer from mission drift burnout and lack vision. New directives, social agendas, and extra layers of review have obscured core activities and caused talent to leave the agency. Conservative leadership must return the focus to development improvement of workforce morale and focus on global outcomes for the efficient use of taxpayer dollars. Holding the UN, the World Health Organization, and other multilateral organizations accountable. Leaderships who designate a political appointee to help coordinate cross-agency efforts to hold the U.S. government's multilateral partners, the UN and the WHO, agencies and other international organizations, to a higher level of financial and programmatic accountability, including assurances that the language promoting abortion will be removed from the UN documents. Right there. Right there again, you're telling the UN and the WHO, remove abortion from your text, or not getting funding. Assurances that language promoting abortion will be removed from the UN documents, policy statements, and technical literature. So from the UN and the WHO, they want them to remove and have assurance that language promoting abortion will be removed from the US documents, UN documents, the policy statements, and the technical literature. Wow. The United States must have more prominent representation in international technical committees and regulation settings organizations to ensure the proper execution of American resources, the preservation of our values, the protection of innovation, and the vitality of our biomedical sector. Don't give me that shit about biomedical sector. You don't give a damn. Global humanitarian assistance. Oh, this one's going to be funny, I bet. The U.S. government is the world's largest humanitarian actor, annually dispersing billions of dollars in life-saving assistance, food, water, shelter, emergency health care, and related protection support to tens of millions of vulnerable people. Funded by the U.S. Congress through the International Disaster Assistance, the IDA account, USAID pays for nearly half the budget of the Nobel Prize-winning UN World Food Program, WFP, as well as dozens of simultaneous operations that range in responses from hurricanes in Central America to tackling outbreaks of Ebola in Central Africa and caring for millions of people displaced by ongoing conflict. USAID's emergency responses were once focused primarily on natural cataclysms such as hurricanes, floods, and earthquakes. Today, the agency spends more than 80% of its humanitarian budget on chronic man-made crises. What do you think a chronic man-made crisis could be? Climate change? Not being vaccinated? Man-made crisis. Man-made crisis. The agency spends more than 80% of its humanitarian budget on chronic man-made crises. Most of these emergency responses began years ago and absorb billions of dollars annually with no end in sight. Every year sees financial demands grow in response to new conflicts, Most recently, where does it say? I lost my spot, I'm sorry. Most recently, Ukraine. The budget of the Bureau for Humanitarian Assistance, the BHA, has doubled compared to just a few years ago, and BHA can no longer manage its funds responsibly. A politically powerful foreign aid industry that benefits financially from extending and expanding these large-scale programs for years, even decades, ensures little scrutiny of these ever-increasing appropriations. The massive growth in emergency aid distorts humanitarian responses, worsens corruption in these countries we support, and exacerbates the misery of those we intend to help. I'm sorry, the fuck? The massive growth in emergency aid distorts humanitarian responses, worsens corruption in countries we support, and exacerbates the misery of those we intend to help. Because you do it on contingencies. The permanence of this assistance, particularly in countries where we have little to no in-country presence, we must rely on UN agencies to self-monitor, has morphed into a co-governance scheme which the U.S. government effectively finances the social service obligations of corrupt regimes that threaten the United States. Wow. Really? The government can then redirect scarce budget resources away from costly health and education toward financing their wars, supporting terrorism, repressing their citizens, and enriching themselves. These are some of those examples of that abuse. Over the past decade, the U.S. government has expended $14 billion in aid to Syria, where the bloody regime of Bashar al-Assad, a close ally of Iran and Russia, skims nearly half of foreign aid through inflated official exchange rates and the diversion of food baskets to its military unions and procurement arrangements with compromised local contractors. Number 2, Yemen, once the breadbasket of the Arabian Peninsula, has now dependent on billions of dollars of food aid. As formerly productive Yemeni farmers cannot compete against free food while irrigation systems remain disrepair, leaving the country to suffer from water shortages during long summer droughts and flooding during its rainy season. Iran-backed Houthi rebels divert substantial amounts of aid to support their war efforts. In Afghanistan, the aid infrastructure built over 20 years of American military presence that 3 presidents wanted to end collapsed with the failure of the U.S.-trained Afghan forces to repel the Taliban in the 2021 advances. Yet the country has still received $1 billion more in U.S. humanitarian aid since the Taliban takeover, and an absent U.S. embassy to ensure that it is not diverted to the Taliban and other terrorist groups. Number 4. In Burma, U.S. aid finances all the food and medical care for hundreds of thousands of persecuted, I'm going to say this name wrong, Rohingya, and that the military regime forces to live in open-air concentration camps. Number 5. In northern Iraq, hundreds of thousands of, I'm going to get this wrong too, is it Yazidis, targeted for genocidal extermination by ISIS, remain in miserable camp, unable to return home because of the Iraqi government's refusal to clear out Iran-backed militias occupying their homeland. In effect, humanitarian aid is sustaining war economies, creating financial incentives for warring parties to continue fighting, discouraging governments from reforming, and propping up malign regimes. Nefarious actors reap billions of dollars in profits from diversion of our humanitarian assistance, but do so international organizations. The WFP charges 36% in overhead, while Oxfam International overhead has reached 70% in Yemen, reflecting the high cost of foreign staff, security, and logistics. With powerful lobbies in Washington, D.C. and the leadership positions throughout U.S. aid and the Department of State, the aid industry exploits Congress' disposition to increase funding year on year to assist those in dire need, but provides no evidence to justify the mounting budget request. We're on page 268. Mandate for leadership, the conservative promise. We are on It's chapter 9. With powerful lobbies in Washington, leadership throughout the USA, the Department of State exploits Congress's deposition to increase funding year over year. No better. Okay. In 2020, USAID's leadership fused formerly bifurcated food and non-food emergency relief operations into a single Bureau for Humanitarian Assistance to improve the management of the agency's largest portfolio. But this reform was not sufficient to address the problem. The next administration should resize the The next administration should resize and repurpose USAID's humanitarian aid portfolio and restore it to its original purpose of providing emergency, short-term relief, prepare vulnerable communities for transition, and do no harm in the following ways. Number 1, work with Congress to make deep cuts in the IDA budget by ending programs that do more harm than good in places controlled by malign actors such as Yemen, Syria, and Afghanistan, where aid is consumed by fraud, diversion, and partner overhead costs. Number 2, require USAID and the State Department to devise country-based exit strategies that term limit the duration of humanitarian response and transition funding from emergency to development projects. This will require robust diplomacy to press host governments to integrate displaced persons in lieu of keeping them in expensive and dehumanizing camps financed by the international community. Number 3, transition from large award, expensive, inefficient, and corrupt UN agency, global NGOs, and contractors to local, especially faith-based entities that are already operating on the ground. Take out who you don't want, make it smaller, make it faith-based. The approach provides a far less expensive, more effective alternative for aid delivery. Local partners more aptly navigate corruption environments and are more likely to steer vulnerable populations away from dependence on aid towards self-sufficiency. Number 4, require that the BHA avail itself from existing IDA authorities that if it fails to use, including to dispense the cost of reimbursement model that it disqualifies undercapitalized local NGOs, accept another donor vetting local partners, streamline the award approval process, and expand the use of fixed amount awards to rein in cost overruns. That is a whole bunch of garbled. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so 5. Direct USAID's Bureau for Management to hire procurement officers for BHA to strengthen the Bureau's award management capacity and reduce the incentives to issue large awards to aid industry giants. They should allow BHA to manage the process of hiring personnel service contractors, require BH partners to adopt stricter vetting procedures and prevent aid from being diverted to terrorists, and increase efforts to obtain greater contributors, not just pledges for humanitarian operation from other donors, and make it a condition for receiving additional aid. You got to raise more money if you want more money from us. Leveraging foreign aid to unleash the power of America's private sector. We are on page 269. Right in the middle. During the 1960s, when USAID was launched, 80% of financial flows from the United States to the developing world was in the form of U.S. government assistance. Today, that figure is under 10%. Overtaken by private investments, remittances, and private charities, all demonstrating the power of America's private sector to promote wealth-generating economic development in poor countries. Leaders in the developing world routinely press U.S. officials about their preference for trade and investment, not aid. Instead, the Biden administration is leveraging private sector financing to promote its climate and other progressive agendas worldwide. Here we go. Back again. The next conservative administration must return USAID to foreign aid model that leverages its resources to promote private sector solutions to the world's true development problems and, in the end, the need for future foreign aid. Private capital investments in these markets is the greatest enabler of job creation and sustainable economic growth throughout the developing world. A key tool of the American soft power leadership is the U.S. Development Finance Corporation, the DFC. Launched in December 2019, the DFC sought to unleash power of America's private sector to advance our interests by providing emerging markets with blended financing opportunities to help wretched poverty create new markets for U.S. products, strengthen bilateral partnerships in strategic parts of the world, and offset China's predatory loans and investments. The Trump administration launched USAID DFC Working Group to maximize development outcomes and review individual investment projects through a counter-China lens and ensure cohesive inter-strategy development response. As development agencies, USAID and DFC must do a better job of aligning their respective activities and closely integrate both structurally and operationally. The easiest way to foster this alignment is a dual hat role of the DFC's Chief Development Officer so that he or she serves simultaneously in both institutions. So they want a dual hat for the DFC, okay? Like all U.S. federal bodies, DFC should be restored to its original intent of deploying its commercial risk-reducing financial services instead of its current misuse as global vehicle to promote economy-killing programs Instead of its current misuse of other global vehicles to promote economy-killing climate programs, meet irrelevant diversity objectives, and over-focus on low-impact or misguided gender-based activities. They literally can never stop shutting up about gender equality, the climate, and diversity. It's in every single chapter, every single time, multi-times. Branding. A deeply embedded culture within the foreign aid bureaucracy views public recognition of U.S. assistance as secondary to the larger philanthropic mission as embarred by the U.S. flag, and is embarrassed by the American flag. Citing vaguely defined security concerns, USAID implementers, UN agency, international NGOs, and contractors often fail to credit the American people for the billions of dollars in assistance they provide the rest of the world, even and engage in self-promoting public relations to raise other donor funds. Really? Oh, hey, Drew. See, Trump 2024, it doesn't matter what you say. I can read this book 17 times over. I could read a 10,000 page book, and I could give you all the facts, and I could give you all the information, and there will still be Trump 2024. Tell me what he's done for you. Tell me personally what he has done for you, without doing a backhanded comment to anybody else. Not calling Kamala a name, not calling Joe a name, not saying woke, not saying any buzzword. What has he done? We started this shit in 2016. Thank you for the rose. I appreciate that. Thank you for the vote sticker, Halo. I appreciate you. Tell me what he has done. 2016, 2017, 2018, 2019, 2020, 21, 22, 23, 24. We have had 9 years of a limited vocabulary and put downs. We have had, thank you for the heart, passion. I appreciate you. We have had, he has done nothing. What's he done for you? Tell me. He does not care. The only thing that Trump allows you to do is to be an awful fucking human without fail. That's it. He allows the worst of humanity to become the worst of humanity. He hasn't done anything. He'll never do anything. Thank you for the rose, Sandra. It's not gonna happen. It wasn't like this is 1 year in, 2 year in. No, we had a whole presidency, a whole fucking pandemic, a whole fucking insurrection, him trying to say that the election was rigged, trying this shit again. He does not care. His own family will tell you he doesn't care. People vote for him. He doesn't care. That he is so far gone even now. But because he will allow you to what? Keep 3 billion fucking guns on hand because he allows you to have a MAGA hat, because you can have a lifted truck. Like what? What has he done? He's done nothing. And every time I ask the question, you'll never give me a serious answer. You just say Trump 2024. That's it. That shows me that you have nothing. He's done nothing, but you're so far into it, you can't admit that you're wrong. And that should scare you more. You have let a narcissistic, nepotistic, entitled brat, literal brat, before the Charlie XCX shit, tell you that he's going to do things for you and then just take your money. He's as divisive as it comes. He was planted there for a reason. They knew what they were doing. They knew he didn't have the capability nor the wherewithal, but he likes the acknowledgement, but he hates being embarrassed. There is nothing this man has done for you. And I'm sorry that you feel that he has not. There is not one of you out there who can say how Trump has personally helped you. Not one. Go ahead. Go ahead. I'll wait. There's nothing. See? It's just Trump 2024. But remind you, every single time Drew comes up on here and says Trump 2024, you pay me. Remind you, just remember that. Just remember that. If you don't say anything, you don't pay me. And you have to keep it to yourself in your head. And that drives you insane. Because no way should a woman be talking to anybody like that, right? Right? But go ahead. Say what you want to say. The algorithm's going to bring all the people back around. And somebody who didn't have the knowledge, thank you for the confetti halo. I appreciate you. Somebody who didn't have the knowledge now will. So go ahead and scream MAGA, 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 MAGA all you want. It's fine. I'm okay with that. Nothing's going to change you. Nothing's going to change your mind. He's not going to be president. Kamala's going to be president. He's never going to be back in office again. And really, we're looking at about, 78 days total. 78 days. And then when we show up at the polls and they try all their bullshit again, we'll be ready. Chess versus checkers. Chess versus checkers. Go ahead. Drew, thank you for paying me. I appreciate it. Every time you say something, every time you like, follow, share, comment, subscribe, gift, you pay me. And that makes me happy because then I can read to people who really want the information. So go ahead and spew whatever you need to. Go ahead, feel free. I need a drink anyway. So, talking about branding. Same people who come on here and say MAGA, 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 MAGA all the time are usually really young kids or very lonely men or people who have bought more than one pair of Trump sneakers and Bibles. So, that's fine. Donate to him all you want. Give him all your money. Do it. Give a billionaire your money. Do it. Do it all the time. Do it. Go ahead. See how that works for you. Man took a to the chest and was down. And he barely acknowledged him until he got on stage and hugged a coat that wasn't even spelled right. This is a man who was full on MAGA. When Donnie had a little ear piercing. Okay? So, and that whole, you missed, boo, wasn't us at the rally. Wasn't us. Sorry. I don't know who's telling you that, but there is nobody who supports Kamala and Joe and the left and Democrats that would have any want to go to an event like that, especially armed. I would rather just sit and watch paint dry. But go ahead. Facts don't matter, right? Facts don't matter. Let's see where we were. The United States is in a struggle for influence with China, Russia, and other competitors, and American generosity must not go unacknowledged. The next conservative administration should build on the Trump's branding policy, which revamped ADS Chapter 320 to force aid bureaucracy to fully credit the American people for the aid they are providing. So the same people who will bitch about, you better give us credit that we gave you aid, are the same fuckers who will vote down infrastructure bills day in and day out and then take credit for it when it passes. So, go right ahead. Revamp ADS chapter because you want to get credit. Donnie is a me person. If you took everybody outside of Mar-a-Lago, left him there with an ankle monitor and nobody could come in, he would lose his fucking mind. Because that's what, truthfully, if it were me, if somebody said, prison or whatever, nope, he's at Mar-a-Lago by himself. He does not get to have his kids. No, he does not get to have visitors. He can walk around that sad-ass golf course. Nobody gets to come in and nobody gets to come out but Secret Service detail and people who are maintaining the grounds. That's it. But only when he can do anything he wants there. But he has no access to phones, no access to internet, no access to anything because it will be punishment. He'd have an ankle monitor on. He would sit there at his lonely table with nobody praising him. We would not allow him to hold any kind of rallies, lives, nothing. Let him be at his beachfront property by himself for the rest of his life with only his Secret Service security detail and who's ever watching him penitentially wise. Watch him walk around it all by himself. He would go mad. He needs the adulation. He needs that. I need to be acknowledged. If he doesn't get that, he gets mad and starts talking like a third grader, which is just 2 steps down from the 5th grader they normally talks. The senior advisor for the brand management in the Bureau for Legislative and Public Affairs, the LPA, discussed infra should be a political appointee who is responsible for maximizing the visibility of the U.S. assistance by enforcing branding policy on every grant, cooperating agreement, and contract. The LPA should liaise with counterparts in the U.S. Agency for Global Media, USAGM, to ensure local media pick up with these activities. So not only are they wanting to make sure you get they want to make sure they get credit, then they want to involve the USAGM. Cross-referencing again. I get it. Other offices and bureaus. Office of Administrator. The next conservative administration should leave in place the current structure of 2 presidentially appointed Senate-confirmed deputy administrators, one for policy, one for management. The deputy administrator and the chief staff must be individuals with extensive previous service in the executive branch, ideally at foreign affairs agencies, and be fluent in languages and practice of federal procurement. Number 2, the Bureau for Foreign Assistance. As noted above, the next conservative administration should name the USAID administrator as Director of Foreign Assistance F at the Department of State with the rank of Deputy Secretary. It should reorient the bulk of F staff from focusing on the formulation of the annual president's budget proposal to the execution of an already appropriated resources. This should include eliminating duplicative mission and bureau resource requests, speeding up the availability of appropriations by delivering to Congress within 60 days the report required by Section 653A of the Foreign Assistance Act, FAA, and a fast-track approval of congressional notifications, CNs, and other pre-obligation requirements. So it's fast-tracking. Thank you for the vote, Sierra Halo. I appreciate you. Thank you. Vote blue, guys. If you're in here, just all the blue hearts you can. I want to see as many blue hearts that I can come across right now. I'm going to hold my place right here so I can get a different highlight, but I want to see all the blue hearts, blue waves, blue hearts, blue waves, blue waves. That's what I want. And just like, comment, follow, share. That's all I care about. Because I'm just telling you the knowledge that you don't want to miss. Some don't want to hear, but some don't want to miss. Blue hearts. I just want to see spammed blue hearts over and over and over and over. That's all I want. That's all I want to see is blue hearts, because that's what's about to happen. Kamala's going to be your president. Blue hearts, blue hearts, blue hearts. I love it. I love it. I love it. I love it. So yeah, fast tracking is also a way of side skirting, trying to get, like, fast tracking, like Brett Kavanaugh, Amy Coney Barrett. Yeah. And yes, I know her name is Barrett. I call her Ferret. Management Bureau, an Office of Human Capital and Talent Management. As indicated previously, the next conservative administration should name a political appointee to the USAID Senior Procurement Executive Director Agency of the Office of Acquisition and Assistance, MOAA. Political appointees with the appropriate credentials, including warrants, should be placed with MOAA, and the agency should exercise its authority to engage qualified experts from other federal departments and agencies outside the government if they are free of conflicts of interest, and the technical committees that review these applications for USAID contract and grant competitions. The administration should change the designation of USAID's competition advocate to an individual favorable with innovative types for contracts that can reduce AID's grip on the agency. The Office of Human Capital Talent Management, as soon as possible, here we're talking about day one. As soon as possible after Inauguration Day, the next conservative administration should name political appointees. This is a highlight. As soon as possible after Inauguration Day, the next conservative administration should name a political appointee to the USAID Chief Human Capital Officer, the CHCO, and the Director of the Office of Human Capital Talent Management. USAID's White House liaison must be an individual with substantial experience with federal personnel systems. The White House Office of the Presidential Personnel should allow the USAID administrator to explore with the counterparts at the Office of Personnel Management where the agency could hire personnel under both with the counterparts of the Office of Personnel Management whether the agency could hire personnel both under administratively determined authority and Schedule C of the accepted service of the Federal Civil Service. Yes, men. That's what that means. Yes, men. USAID, there we go. Schedule F, next freaking sentence. USAID should be one of the agencies to pilot test Executive Order 13957, which created Schedule F within accepted service and should aggressively recruit and place candidates into limited term positions under Schedule A of the accepted service, especially veterans. Schedule F. People who do my bidding. The new CHCO should examine how the existing members of the Senior Executive Service, SES, at USAID should be reworked through the agency and should institute an SES mobility program to encourage regular rotation of senior career leaders, including through details to other departments and agencies. The Bureau for Policy, Planning, and Learning. The next conservative administration should shift policy function from the Bureau for Policy, Planning, and Learning to the Office of the Budget of the Resource Management. So, Policy, Planning, and Learning, the PPL, should now go to the BRM, located in the Office of the Administrator. It should rename the BRM, the Office of Budget, Policy, and Resource Management, the BPRM, and staff the team with political appointees. Schedule F. The administration should also move the responsibility for reviewing and processing proposed changes in USAID's policy Bible, the USAID's policy Bible. 272, top of the word, top of the page, and processing proposed changes for the USAID's policy Bible, the Automated Directive Systems, the ADS, and the Management Bureau to the new BPRM. Wow. Even before these changes, the assistants for the PPL should decree an immediate freeze on change to the ADS and agency-wide policy documents to allow for the priority publication of amendments to reflect the new administration viewpoints. All major agency policies should be reviewed and amended for withdrawal within the new administration's first year in calendar office. So review them and then close them. Bureau for Legislative and Public Affairs. The next conservative administration should invest no more than 10% of USAID's allocation of administratively determined politically appointed positions to the Bureau of Legislative and Public Affairs. A priority for these positions, combined with hires under Schedule A, should be the review and the editing of the agency's public-facing web pages and social media accounts to eliminate material that does not conform to the new administration's policies. So they want to take a Schedule A, make them public-facing, and then any wording they don't want, they're going to take out. The agency should accelerate the review of congressional notifications with LPA published to all CNs and congressional reports. To ensure consistency and clarity of public messaging, LPA should gain direct authority over the communications staff scattered through USAID's various bureaus and offices. LPA should expand its public-facing efforts to include conservative allies that are active in global development and humanitarian aid work, including industry groups, nonprofits, trade associations, foundations, and advocacy organizations correspondingly to reduce the aid's industrial complex grip on the U.S. corporal-general relationship. The Office of the General Counsel. Along with the director of the M/OAA and the General Counsel is one of the two or three most important positions at the USAID should be a priority for immediate appointments. Immediate appointments. That's a Schedule F red flag. Because proper legal interpretation of executive orders and internal USAID policy is crucial, the next conservative administration should recruit and appoint commanding a team of Schedule C attorneys. So they want Schedule C attorneys for the OGC. Within weeks of Inauguration Day, OGC should set a clear guidance on the eligibility of faith-based USAID funding. Right there. So they want to hire Schedule C attorneys for the Office of General Counsel, the OGC, and within weeks of Inauguration Day, OGC should have clear guidance on the eligibility of faith-based organizations for USAID funding. The Office of Budget Resource Management. The director of a budget resource and management should be politically appointed power as a part of the administrator's senior management team. BRM's highest priorities should be to prepare the report required by Section 635A according to the administrator's guidance, institute a fast-track process for submission of the congressional notifications, and identify already appropriated resources to reprogram immediately to fund the new administration's priorities. The next conservative administration should consider prioritizing placing young political appointees in the BRM and the LPA. That sounds like DEI, right? Why do you want young? Why don't you want older? Why don't you want middle-aged? You want young? Seems like you want a very specific subset. Interesting. The Bureau for Democracy Development and Innovation. A key outcome of the transformation of USAID undertaking during the Trump administration, the Bureau for Democracy Development and Innovation, the DDI, is home for most, page 273, the top of the agency's non-health, non-humanitarian funding, as well as almost all of its sectoral appropriation directives, including those that reflect pet projects of individual members of Congress. The Bureau is the policy and financial nexus of USAID for most of the Biden administration's radical priorities in foreign assistance, including gender, climate, and promotion of identity-based politics. On the positive side, DDI is also the Bureau in charge of areas that will be crucial to reorient USAID, including trade, economic growth, innovation, partnerships with private sector, and the agency's relationship with communities of faith. So, once again, we have tied gender, climate change, and identity-based politics. We have tied it to USAID, and you can only have it if you have private sector agency relationships with communities of faith. The next conservative administration should make the rapid staffing key of DDI positions a high priority. Besides the Senate-confirmed assistant administrator, the directors of each of the centers of the hubs of Bureau will need political leadership. And almost every one of these agency-wide policies that cover DDI areas of responsibility will need to be edited or rewritten as soon as possible. Why is that? The next conservative administration should harvest DDI's central appropriations to fund new priorities, especially working with ethnic and religious minorities in faith-based organizations and joint ventures with private sector in education and energy. Oh, thank you, Dark Frank, for the roses. I appreciate you. Let's say that last part again. Okay, ready? The next conservative administration should harvest the DDI's central appropriations to fund new priorities, especially working with ethnic and religious minorities and faith-based organizations and joint ventures within the private sector in education and energy. The DDI program should issue funding opportunities restricted to new and underutilized partners of the NPI. Now we're going to talk about regions. So we've got regions, we've got Asia, Middle East, Africa, Latin America, I'm thinking then personnel. So regions, Asia. Asia is the most populous continent and ground zero in the battle against Communist China's efforts to exploit the development needs of poor countries for geopolitical gain. America's Indo-Pacific strategy should guide USAID's approach to dispersing foreign aid in the region. USAID should intensify its bilateral relationship with pro-free market Japan, Australia, South Korea, and India so they can jointly advance private sector solutions to secure financing for power for generation, infrastructure, digital connectivity, investments, and trade expansions, and other economic activities. USAID enjoys a strong in-country presence in India, but recent coordination by the global response to COVID-19, as India is a global leader in the vaccine production, those ties should be expanded. So too should the development of cooperation with Taiwan, which boasts its effective pandemic response capacity that should be shared with developing countries. China's island-hopping efforts to capture vulnerable Pacific states in its direct strategic threat to the U.S. maritime supremacy and the homeland security, and the USAID and its allied donors should neutralize these efforts through the deployment of targeted assistance, such as helping countries combat the effects of China's illegal fishing. While China outpaces the ability of the Democratic Alliance to deploy state-backed financing to developing countries, it is unable to compete with our collective private sector capacity to deploy trillions of dollars in capital. Pakistan is a prime example of foreign aid policies disconnected from the U.S. national interests. The country has been the recipient of more than $12 billion in U.S. foreign aid since 2010, yet remains intensely anti-American and corrupt and is backed by the Taliban continuously since 2001, jump-started North Korea's nuclear bomb program, brutalized its religious minorities, and is willing client of China's while taking on the unrepayable loans from the U.S. taxpayer-funded International Monetary Fund from the World Bank. Middle East. The Middle East is far more vulnerable than it was in 2020 because of the Biden administration's strategy for regions adrift. Tunisia has slid into an autocracy, Iraq is plummeting further into Iran's orbit, and U.S. soldiers continue to risk their lives for unclear ends amid the ruins of Syria. Meanwhile, billions of dollars in U.S. foreign aid props up regimes allied with Iran. President Trump's Abraham Accords signaled the end of centrality of the Arab-Israeli conflict, which paralyzed the U.S. approach to the region and focused instead on Iran and the principal threat to America from this region. During the Trump administration, USAID's allocation reflected new opportunities created by the Accords and sought to strengthen regional alliances against Iran through expanded regional trade and investment to promote genuine political stability tethered to strong American leadership. USAID formerly partnered with United Arab Emirates, Israel, Morocco, Qatar, and Kuwait to catalyze regions' partnerships under Africa. Under the Biden administration, however, USAID has returned to a model that deepens the region's dependence on aid. A new conservative president, right here, should reset the USAID's programming in the Middle East in line with their national security interest and committed to the goal of ending the need for foreign sovereign aid through the development by the private sector. Specifically, foreign aid must advance the Abraham Accords. Increased trade and investments between Israel and its Arab neighbors represent the most effective path toward reducing poverty, fostering the emergence of middle class, and solidifying peace. USAID should therefore focus its development on assistance in the countries such as Morocco and Sudan through joint investment collaboration and more economically advanced economies such as the UAE and Israel. Remember, guys, this was written before anything happened over there. Anything in Gaza, anything Palestinian, anything Israeli. That's what this was written in 2023. It actually was written before then, but they've had like 10 revisions now. USAID should consider cutting aid to the allied Iran, limiting assistance to these countries to the advancement of narrow strategic priorities and support for basic American values, such as aid to persecuted religious minorities. USAID continues to expend hundreds of millions of dollars in non-humanitarian aid to the antagonistic regimes of Iraq, Lebanon, and Palestinian territories. After billions of dollars in aid by many, page 275 at the top, years of effort, these countries remain hopelessly dysfunctional, a fact that exposes a failure of foreign aid model that is disconnected to our national security and without exit strategies promote self-reliance. We must admit that USAID's investment in these education sector, for example, served no other purpose than to subsidize corrupt, incompetent, and hostile regimes. Wow. USAID should undergo operational changes to secure better development outcomes by reducing its mission footprints in the Middle East, given that most personnel in the region are unable to leave their highly protected, expensive compounds and carry out their oversight functions. It should redirect program funding away from expensive and poorly performing international partners to more cost-effective local entities that require minimal USAID field presence. Wow. Now on to Africa. Since its inception, USAID has had a strong presence in Africa, saving millions of lives through its pandemic and infectious disease responses, specifically and especially for malaria and HIV/AIDS. It has led global efforts to provide life-saving emergency assistance to those who are fleeing conflict and suffering from devastating natural disasters. American generosity knows no equal. Yet the agency's efforts to reduce poverty and hunger have failed, as it spends ever higher amounts on aid, partnering with costly and ineffective aid industrial complex that has little interest in working itself out of a job. Long-term, multi-billion-dollar humanitarian response lacks exit strategies, while numerous development projects lead neither to measurable results nor to government reforms. Despite the tens of billions of dollars spent on the continent, remains poor, unstable, and riven with conflict, corruption, and Islamic terrorism. This situation has also resulted in the vast illegal migration from the continent. Failure to generate wealth has provided more opportunities for China to step in and become the continent's leader in trade, loans, and investment. As a result, Beijing controls most of the continent's strategic minerals that are critical advancements of technology. Moreover, USAID is criticized by Africans for exploring and exporting cultural values that are the antithesis to their traditional norms, furthering and abetting Chinese continental supremacy. The Biden administration's radical global policies have cut off billions in investment to develop clean fossil fuels, denying Africa's billion-plus people access to cheap energy to further their own development and finance their own social services in health, water, education, agriculture, while increasing its dependence on China's renewable energies. It has exacerbated hunger by increasing the cost of fertilizers to levels that many African farmers can no longer afford. Poverty-inducing dependence on aid grows daily. So, again, they're saying climate change is bullshit because it's cheap. Africa can just get what they want, but nope. Let's see. 1, 2... And there's like maybe 5 more pages. USAID efforts in Africa requires a rethink. In 2025, USAID will update its 5-year country development and cooperation strategy. That is definitely a highlight. Top of page 246 if you're following along, chapter 9. In 2025, USAID will update the 5-year country development and cooperation strategies. This will give the next administration an opportunity to pursue new development course for Africa that promotes economic self-reliance, catalyzes private sector solutions for job creation through increased trade investment, terminates legacy and non-performing programs, and supports diversified energy approaches. Critically, it must hold China accountable for its extractive investments that violate international labor, environmental, and anti-corruption norms and practices that undercut business opportunities for the U.S. companies and sabotage Africa's development. USAID, in collaboration with the U.S. International Development Finance Corporation, the U.S. Department of State, the U.S. Department of Treasury, the U.S. Department of Commerce Foreign Commercial Service, should use its convening power, diplomatic heft, and risk-reducing instruments to facilitate a U.S./African business relationship and expand Prosper Africa, launched by the Trump administration to bring together services from across the U.S. government to help companies and investors to do business in U.S. African markets. So Prosper Africa, that's what Trump had. The Africa Growth and Opportunity Act, the AGOA, provides Africa duty-free access to U.S. markets. The next administration should extend AGOA beyond its 2025 term, but within a strategic framework that rewards good governance and pro-free market economic policies. There's no point in wasting mass sums of aid to countries whose governments fail to keep their promises to reform. U.S. aid should build on, not compete with, private sector initiatives launched by global churches, corporate philanthropists, and distro groups that have already invested billions of dollars in self-reliance-based projects. Japan has committed $30 billion in aid to Africa over 3 years to stem China's economic and political grip on the continent. Gulf-based sovereign funds are also investing billions in African energy, infrastructure, mining, water, food production, information and communication technologies, and other strategic industries. Other allied donors are promoting investment-based aid. There is no lack of funding to support Africa's economic rise. What is lacking is the strategic direction of the U.S. government foreign aid direction among the USAID government foreign aid agencies. PEPFAR has saved countless lives during the years and constitutes America's most successful aid program. During the Trump administration, PEPFAR increased sharing funding of locals from 20 to 70%. Commensurated improvements that have had long-lasting effects. That makes sense. Local entities from 20 to nearly 70%, with commensurate improvements that have lasted impact. The next administration should extend the localization model to help the global health humanitarian assistance of how local African entities strengthen their capacity for direct management of U.S. programs. Correspondingly, USAID should aggressively ramp down its partnership with wasteful, costly, politicized UN agency, international NGOs, and Beltway contractors. All new programs in Africa should build on existing local initiatives that enjoy support of the African people. Okay, so now Latin America. U.S. foreign assistance throughout the Western Hemisphere is designed to respond to a national security threat that emanates from the region, such as illicit drug and arms trafficking, illegal immigration flows, terrorism, pandemics, and strategic threats from China, Russia, and Iran. From Latin America. Over the past decade, the United States has provided billions of dollars in security, humanitarian, and development assistance in Central America and the Andes, including $1 billion in food and non-food emergency aid to millions of Venezuelan refugees who have fled the Maduro dictatorship. USAID is always first to respond to natural disasters in Central America and the Caribbean and employs a network of dedicated experts to the region to deliver assistance. During the COVID pandemic, the United States provided millions of doses of vaccines and other emergencies health support as well. But our own? Yet years of foreign aid have failed to bring peace, prosperity, and stability to the hemisphere. Poverty, joblessness, and social unrest have left leftist electoral victories from Mexico to Chile. These regimes are hostile to American interests and private enterprise, breed corruption, implement radical policies that will further impoverish their people and threaten their democracies, and are more open to striking partnerships with communist China. Left-wing authoritarian kleptocracies in Cuba, Nicaragua, and Venezuela deny their people basic freedoms, violently and ruthlessly suppress any dissent, repress communities of faith, and generate such misery that hundreds of thousands of citizens have attempted to cross our southern border over the past 2 years. No recent administration has made any progress in reducing the chaos and desperation in Haiti. Conversely, Latin America is a major global source of energy and food, which generates substantial incomes that can finance internal social and economic development. The nations of the hemisphere share a natural and massive geographic trade and investment through their proximity to the United States, supplemented by free trade agreements. The United States remains the favored designation for higher education and business opportunities for Latin Americans. Successful diasporas of the United States have served as a powerful economic, cultural, and political bridge to every country in the region. The Trump administration focused on promoting trade and investment, especially in infrastructure, through an interagency effort called America Grows, by which USAID played a key role in providing technical assistance to create an enabling environment to attract private investments. The Biden administration canceled this program. The next conservative administration should reassess all programs for U.S. foreign aid to Latin America and terminate those that have failed to achieve results after years of efforts. Instead, the USAID should do this: focus on its resources on strengthening the fundamentals of free markets, such as clear property rights, functioning judiciary, and promoting labor on pension reforms, lower taxes, deregulation in order to increase trade and investment with the region and the United States is a genuine path to economic and political stability. Again, it was one sentence. Challenge the socialist ideas that have captured too many of the region's government and their nation's youths. Challenge socialistic ideas? They should fund partnerships with private sector and civil support society groups, including university centers and think tanks that advocate for pro-free markets and democratic ideas. Finally, Latin America is the perfect proving ground for reducing USAID's reliance on U.S. large-based implementers, and the agency should commit to shifting all of its portfolio in the region to local organizations by 2030. So they want all of that aid to just be like, nope, we're going to shift it all, and you can do it self-reliance by 2030. Personnel. The Trump administration agenda for USAID was undercut from the onset by both recalcitrant career personnel and inexperienced political personnel. That's all they are. The next conservative administration should implement personnel policies from the beginning so that the agency can be effectively managed according to the high standards. The rapid deployment of reforms will require key experienced personnel installed quickly at the USAID's headquarters. Right there, guys, Schedule F. Quickly, rapid, day one. Delay will only impede progress. In general, areas of focus should be appropriating effective lawyers in key positions, reforming career and hiring firm mechanisms, and getting a grip on the grant-making process. The administrative staff of the Office of General Counsel, with at least 4 political appointed attorneys besides the General Counsel should have 2 political deputies, one of whom which cover Human Capital and Talent Management, the HCTM, and the other the Office of Acquisition and Assistance, OAA. The administration should name its political appointee with long experience in federal personnel systems as USAID's Chief Human Capital Officer and Director of HCTM. The appointee should help scope, I'm going to highlight that one, bottom of page 278. This appointee would help to scope and shepherd the position's descriptions, clearances, and other components of hiring processes that are necessary for immediate onboarding, while coordinating with the White House to bring new appointees to make it internal career day changes. Day one. On day one, page 279. USAID should halt agency-wide training and replace it with training that advances the president's agenda. Right there, guys. Right there. Remember I told you? Boring, 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 boring. Wait for the nugget. Right there. Day one. Day one. U.S. aid should halt agency-wide training and replace it with training modules to advance the president's agenda. The administration should appoint a senior account official, an SAO, to report on the agency's adherence to the administration's policy priorities, including on protecting life in foreign assistance. So again, we're back to pro-life, critical race theory, climate change, gender diversity, and inclusion. Yep. The administration should appoint a senior accountable officer to report on the agent's adherence to the administration's policies, including on protecting life in foreign assistance, critical race theory, climate change, gender and diversity inclusion. It should also create a program to staff hard-to-fill position overseas. Finally, the administration should create a recurring program for veterans and other groups to participate in career job opportunities at the USAID. Former missionaries, veterans, and members of diasporas and faith community stakeholders with overseas experience should be recruited to work at the USAID on a Schedule A appointment and institutional services and contractors as personnel services contractors and foreign service officers. So, FBOs should be hired, no matter what they are, through Schedule F. Conclusion. The next administration, the next conservative administration, will have a unique opportunity to realign the U.S. foreign assistance with the American national interest and the principles of good governance and more accurately reflect the taxpayers' unmatched charitable desire to help to those in need. It can help build a strong baseline of conservative reforms undertaken by Trump administration to counter Communist China's strategy of world domination. However, this will require bold steps taken from day one to undergo gross misuse of foreign aid by the current administration to promote radical ideology that is politically divisive at home and harms our global standing. Wow, 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 wow. So guys, if you are keeping track, we did 262, page 262 to 282. We did the 20 pages, and now we are done with section 2. So, just to reiterate, this is how much we've gone through. This is still how much is in this book. And then there's still this one too. So, we will be starting on page 283. We will start on page 283 on Thursday. I do not do readings on Wednesdays, unfortunately. So, I don't have the time to do so. But it will be, so that's going to be 820. So, 822. We're going to start on section 3. Section 3 starts the general welfare. This is where I think it's going to dive down more into these little, these are much, much easier to understand. And this is going to be where things are going to get personal. Return to the original purpose of school meals. Separate the agricultural provisions from the Farm Bill. Repeal the federal sugar programs. Like all of this. From here on out, it's going to get pretty personal as how it's going to attain to you. A lot of this just been like personnel, stacking the personnel, Schedule F, doing what you need to do. It's been a lot of that. But now this, when we start on 822, is going to talk about when our founders wrote in the Constitution the federal government would promote the general welfare. They could not have fathomed a massive bureaucracy that would someday spend $3 trillion in a single year, roughly the sum combined of the department covered in the section in 2022. So, we are going to start with that on 822, probably noon, 11 or noon, same thing. And this section, I'm just trying to see how many chapters this actual section is. So we've gone through all of the authors, the contents, section 3. So we've gone through section 1, which was taking the reins of the government, and we just finished section 2, the common defense. Okay, so now we will be doing section 3, which is the general welfare. Section 4 is the economy. Section 5 is independent regulatory agencies. And like section 5 and section 4 are like maybe 200 pages. So the bulk of what we're going to be doing in section 3, the general welfare, it's going to be the Department of Agriculture, the Department of Education, the Department of Energy and related commissions, environmental agency, so the EPA, Department of Health and Human Services, the Department of Housing and Urban Development, the Department of the Interior, the Department of Justice, the Department of Labor and related agencies, the Department of Transportation, and the Department of Veterans Affairs. That is page 283 through 641. That is a huge bulk of what we're going to be doing. And this is where things are going to be like, nope, can't do that. Nope, can't do that. Nope. We're going to talk about no-fault marriages. We're going to talk about what family-centric looks like. What is that? I'm feeling kind of ducky. Thank you, Halo. Thank you. Nobody can ever top my Halo. I love it. I love it. I love my Halo. You should follow. Should always follow. Great content. Very, very, very demure. Very demure. I love it. The relaxed goose. I've never seen that. That's so freaking cute. But I will try. This week's kind of jumbled for me too, so I don't know that I'll be working even on summaries this week, and it's especially the DNCs, so my brain's like, so I will see you guys on Thursday. We will start on the general welfare. Prepare for your jaws to just go, what? What? Department of Education, what? Housing, what? Head Start ending, what? Like, you'll see, it gets, this is where when Project 2025 started, when it was starting to like come around, like the wording. Thank you for the vote stickers. Vote, guys. Vote, 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 vote. Vote, vote. Check your voter registration. Go to vote.org. Make sure you have not been delisted. Make sure your address is up to date. Make sure that however you are choosing to vote, in person, otherwise. Thank you for the rose, Helen. Halo coming in strong with 20 vote tickets. Make sure that you are doing what you can. We are so close. 78 days. I have a pair of socks that sat underneath my bed for more than 78 days. We can do this. We've got this. It's just about knowledge and power. So I will be back to reading this. And again, if you've missed this, I will re-upload this to my YouTube channel. Then you can, and it'll be right in order. So yes, I post other things on there, but if you just look for Reading Project 2025 and what that's about, blah, 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 it'll tell you exactly what pages we did. And you can follow right along there. And then when I can work on summaries, I think I'm on part 10 right now. I'm going to try to narrow the summaries a little more to just get like the actual, like the parts that we need to know. Some of those things and some of those I'm like, I'm not quite certain 100% what that is, but I know what this is. So that's what I'm trying to do. And there will be higher professionals than me that are going to discuss in great length some of the verbiage that I am unfamiliar with. That's where we are. We're going to keep reading. We're going to get through this. Hope is here. Joy is here. Grab your Doritos. Go touch some grass. Know that we're almost done with this orange tip shit. And have a great rest of your day. I love you all and thank you for joining.